everyone and welcome. Today we will be going over how to divide fractions. I want to start off by examining what a fraction is, as well as components of a fraction. Let's consider this pizza. As we can see, half of the pizza has pepperoni on it. Let's split this up. Looking at the number 1, in other words, the numerator, we see that this 1 can represent the amount of pieces that have pepperoni on it. In other words, this piece being shaded in right now. The number 2, or the denominator, represents the total number of equal pieces that the pizza has been cut into. Together, the numerator and the denominator make up the fraction, which represents that 1/2 of the pizza is covered in pepperoni. Now that we understand the difference between a numerator, denominator, and fraction, let's look at a reciprocal. You may be asking, what is a reciprocal and how does it relate to fractions? Well, to explain this, let's go back and look at our example of 1/2. All a reciprocal is a flip-flop of the fraction. In other words, you're turning the fraction on its head. When we make the reciprocal of a fraction, we bring the numerator to the denominator and the denominator to the numerator. In other words, we're literally flipping the fraction. So the top portion, which was a 1, is now brought to the bottom, and the bottom portion, which was a 2, is now brought to the top. In simpler terms, 2/1 is the same as writing 2. Therefore, the reciprocal of 1/2 is simply 2. Now that we have all the basics down, we're ready to move on and actually start dividing our fractions. Let's start with an example. Say we take the fraction that we started with, 1/2, and we divided that by 1/7. Now, we can remember a short acronym to help us divide these fractions. This acronym is K, C, F. Simply put, K stands for keep, C stands for change, and F stands for flip. What's good about this method is that it's very easy to remember because the first term corresponds to the first part of the question. The second term corresponds to the second part of the question. And the third term corresponds to the third part of the question. So, when we want to know what we're doing with the first, second, and third term of the question, we look at the first, second, and third part of the acronym. So, let's begin the question. Again, we have 1/2 divided by 1/7. So let's begin. First term, 1/2, we keep. So let's just rewrite 1/2. Second part of the question, the division sign, we change. What we're going to change the division sign to is multiplication. So let's do that. The third portion of the question, flip, corresponds to the third part of the question here. So 1/7 is simply flipped. Now remember before when I taught you how to take the reciprocal? This is the same thing. All we're doing is taking the reciprocal of the second number. So instead of 1/7, we now get 7/1. We've now changed our question from a division of fractions to a multiplication of one. To multiply fractions out, all you need to do is multiply straight across the numerators, So 1 times 7, and that will give you 7. And then multiply straight across the denominators. So what we're going to do is 2 times 1, and similarly that will give you 2. We can now conclude that 1 over 2 divided by 1 over 7, in other words, 1/2 divided by 1/7, is 7 over 2.